So if you've been following the news lately, you've probably been hearing a lot about labor unions.
A wave of workers' strikes sweeping across America.
Union workers at Kellogg's cereal plants have been on strike for more than a week, angry about long hours, including 7-day work weeks.
Thousands across different industries have already walked out.
Working people are saying enough is enough. We want dignity, we want respect, we want justice. Thank you all very much.
Now, while labor unions are one of the biggest gears in the United States economy, I was surprised to not find a single YouTube video or article that actually goes into depth explaining what a labor union is and really whether they're good or bad for our economy. What's up, guys? My name is Demji, but you can also call me Damien, and in this video I'm going to go into the history of labor unions, what they are, and what role do they play in today's economy. Simply put, a labor union is a coalition of workers that use their collective power to bargain over wages, benefits, and other workplace things such as safety. Looking back in history, the very first labor unions actually began sometime in the mid-19th century as a response to the economic and social conditions of the Industrial Revolution. These efforts were quickly crushed by big businesses and corrupt governments as they posed a threat to the profitable but deeply exploitative practices of the time. These exploitative practices included brutal child labor and 12 to 14-hour workdays, 6 days a week. It would not be until the economic low of the Great Depression for then President Franklin Delano Roosevelt to pass the Wagner Act, which legally protected the rights of unions to organize.
Let's go, boys.
As unions rapidly grew from the 50s throughout the 60s, they also became more involved in civil rights as well. An often forgotten fact about Martin Luther King Jr. is that he was one of the strongest union supporters of the 1960s. While he also focused on civil rights, he was just as strong as a union proponent as well, often participating in strikes and speaking out in favor of workers' rights. Now, with all of this in mind, some of us may be asking, so what do unions really do for the average American worker? Well, labor unions helped end terrible practices such as child labor. They helped expand wages for the average worker. They helped to create reasonable hours that we now take for granted, such as the 8-hour workday or the 5-day work week. Of course, weekends, federal holidays, worker benefits, setting a better standard for non-unionized workers as well, as there was an economic pressure for non-unionized businesses to match the wages and the benefits of the unionized workers, and the list can go on and on and on. Now, all was well until the late 1970s to the early 1980s when President Reagan was elected and the union busting efforts really ramped up. Thanks to Reagan and the big businesses that backed him, union membership dramatically declined throughout the 1980s and continued to do so throughout the 90s. Along with the reduction of unionization rates in the United States came the reduction of wages, the increase of wealth inequality, and the return of unethical business practices and working conditions. Now, as a result of the economic conditions created by the COVID-19 pandemic, we've actually seen a new rise in unionization rates and strikes across the country. Now, this is not just only because of the COVID-19 pandemic. There's also been a very prevalent progressive movement since 2016 as a result of the Bernie Sanders campaign. But despite the positive effects unions have upon workers, that doesn't mean big businesses are going to give up their fight now. As a matter of fact, there's still plenty of union propaganda and misinformation that I actually want to spend a lot of this video on clearing up. Now, there's plenty of conservative and right-wing arguments against unions I want to debunk, but I want to go through with the most common one first, and that is that jobs are unsustainable and that they kill jobs, not just for themselves, but for other people. And the reasoning behind this is that, well, the wages are too high, and the benefits are too high, or the working conditions are too good, and therefore the business models aren't sustainable. Well, this is something that employers have been saying since the 1800s. If we don't force our workers to work 14 hours a week, we're going to go out of business. If we pay our workers more than $1 an hour, we're going to go out of business. And it's something that's being repeated time and time and again, and yet we still see these same jobs. And it really makes you ask the question, if an employer or a business or a corporation cannot afford to pay their workers a decent wage, decent benefits, and safe working conditions, then should they really be in business to begin with? Now, another argument you will hear most often from employers or businesses that are trying to fight against unionization is that, why do you need a union, right? Because take Amazon. They said that we already pay $15 an hour. We already give you these benefits. We already give you good working conditions, supposedly, which we all know is not true. And by the way, they only pay their workers $15 an hour because of a pressure campaign by progressive candidate Bernie Sanders. But even, let's just say hypothetically, a company did provide all of these great services to their workers. Having a union is always an important check and balance between employers who always want to get the most out of their workers for the least amount of money and employees who are trying to do the exact opposite. And striking that balance is economically ideal, not just for the businesses, but also for the workers who deserve, in my opinion, almost a human right to adequate wages and adequate working conditions so that they could come home to their family, feed them, and have a home and not have to worry about not being able to pay the bills next week. Now, I kind of ruined this one a little bit before, but another argument you would hear is that it's unfair. How come the unionized workers get to have these higher wages and benefits and I don't? Well, that's actually not true as well, because like I mentioned earlier in the video, when unionized workers do unionize and come together, it puts a pressure upon the other labor markets of other firms and businesses to kind of match their wages and benefits. Because think about it, if you have firm A, which is offering their, let's say their workers $20 an hour, and firm B, which is offering their workers, say $15 an hour and no benefits, then firm A is going to attract more workers, which forces firm B to raise their wages or to raise their benefits to attract more labor. And there's plenty of studies from top tier universities that prove this concept. And to reinforce some of my points here, if we look at countries such as Denmark, Sweden, or some other European countries with very high unionization rates, we actually don't see crazy high unemployment rates or terrible economies. We actually see very prosperous nations with happy people. Now, to get to that same level of economic liberation as those Scandinavian countries, it's obviously going to take a lot more than labor unions. We're going to need more progressive taxation and other policies are going to have to reach us there. But I do believe that unionization is a very fast and effective way to take the United States towards that same direction. Now, I hope this video provides some context to the labor events that are happening right now, where we're seeing record amounts of strikes and unionization drives across the country. I feel like a perfect conclusion to this video is Frederick Douglass's quote, which simply states that power concedes nothing without a demand. And I feel like that's very important when we're studying labor unions. You have this big power, the corporation, the business, the firm, and you have workers who on their own don't have anything. But when they come together, they're able to use collective bargaining to actually get something that they can all benefit from. And I believe that is not only important for the well-being of our citizens, but also kind of beautiful at the same time. So that's going to be it for this video, guys. I'm always open to making another video about unions in case you guys are more interested, or maybe writing a blog about it. But you know, this is my first YouTube video, so please leave any criticisms or feedback in the comments below. I'm very open to anything. Thank you so much for watching this video. Leave your comments below. As I mentioned earlier, I'm probably going to make a video responding to them. So, you know, feel free to ask any questions. I am so open to helping you guys out. I have all the time in the world here. So yeah, that's gonna be it for this video. I'm Denji, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.